Okay, so you've done some practice with evaluating sources, and now hopefully you're ready to start kind of looking for sources yourself. However, we do need to talk about how to take notes once you have found a good source. So, the overall goal with note taking is to find answers to the questions you developed at the beginning of the research process. It's also important to be open to new information and new questions that will pop into your head as you learn more about the topic. I have a specific format that I do want you to use in taking notes, and you have this here at the top of the notebook the digital notebook that you're going to be using. We're also going to practice a little bit today finding notes together. So make sure that before you start taking notes that you read the entire source before you begin. So we'll talk about these as we get to it. So we are going to be looking at a source that I found using the databases. It's called What Are You Talking About? Peter Guber on the Power of Purposeful Storytelling. Because remember, this is my topic that I'm using throughout our lessons. So, the first thing that I'm going to do, I already skimmed through it. I know it's a quality source. The first thing I need to do is read it because I want to get a sense of, well, like, which of these pieces of information are going to be helpful for me in my research assignment. So we're going to read this together. Persuasive talkers tend to do well in business, and yet we don't typically think of storytelling as a professional discipline. Hollywood producer Peter Guber is on the crusade to remedy that. In his book, Tell to Win, the CEO of Mandalay Entertainment takes a look at the way people use stories to do business. He spoke with Inc.com's Mike Huffman. Your book, so it's like an interview here. So this is Mike Hoffman asking the questions. Your book looks at the power of purposeful stories. So, what exactly is a purposeful story? A story you tell with a specific purpose in mind. So, when you tell a joke, you want to make someone laugh. Or if you tell a story about someone who had a heart attack, it may be because you want the listener to exercise. Stories are tools to create social cohesion and to get humans to strategize together. You believe the best stories are interactive? How so? You have to try to engage an audience. You cannot just talk at them. You have to talk with them and modify your story as you tell it based on your feedback. If you do this successfully, your listeners are more likely to metabolize the information you wish to convey, to change their behavior, and you repeat your story to others, to repeat your story to others. Okay, so how can someone in sales or marketing turn a garden variety pitch into a purposeful story? It's so simple, it's embarrassing. And yet, a lot of people overlook the basics. First, when you walk into a room to sell a product or pitch an investor or whatever, you absolutely have to know what your intention is. What do you want from your listeners? You have to understand your objective and be transparent about it in order to establish trust. Second, you have to figure out a way to capture your listener's attention. It can be a physical movement or asking someone about the pictures on his desk in a way that builds mutuality. Finally, the goal of your story must be to show what is in it for the listeners. The audience must win. You teach at UCLA. Do your students have well-honed storytelling skills? No. Most young people haven't used their storytelling skills since they were 8 or 9 or 10 and wanted to persuade mom and dad to take them to a ball game. There was a series of moments that I could look back. Oh, sorry. Was there a moment in your business career when you suddenly realized the power of storytelling? There was a series of moments that I could look back on. I could follow the breadcrumbs, and all of them involved my failures. So I started to wonder why I had failed in some instances when I had succeeded in others. And I realized that I failed when I neglected to tell a purposeful story to the audience or to my employees or to my shareholders. I looked inside myself and saw what had worked for me. Who are the most effective storytellers around? Go to this link to see his list. Okay, so I read it and it's an interview, so it's kind of different. Um, so the first thing that I need to do is I know that I need to have this information about where I'm getting like what my source is. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to my note card. And that's the very first thing I want to do every time I'm taking a note is where it says source, I want to copy and paste in that MLA bibliography information. Okay, my next step is I'm going to move on to this part, the evidence from the text, a direct quote. So there were parts of that were really interesting to me as someone who is interested in storytelling and wants to learn about how to use it either in a career or in my life. And one thing that he said was that, where was it? Oh, this really stood out to me. Stories are tools to create social cohesion and to get humans to strategize together. Okay, so I'm going to copy that and then I'm going to go back to my notes and in quotation marks, I'm going to add that in. I'm going to paste what he said. So, my next step is to paraphrase that. So, it does have a lot of big words, and what paraphrasing means is to take that information, process it through your brain, and write it in your own words. So, what I think he's saying is that stories make people stick together. That's what cohesion means, stick together. And social is like, people being around each other. It gets humans to strategize together. So to like make plans and work together. So, and I'm going to refer to this guy's name too. The one being interviewed is Peter Guber. Okay. So Guber says that stories, what did I say? Bring people together and help them make plans. Okay. I think that covers those ideas. And this is absolutely my wording, right? So it sounds completely different from the way he talked about it, but the idea is the same. And that's your goal with the paraphrase. So then the next thing you need to do is write a comment. And in the comment, you can see up here where it describes what you're supposed to do in each one. In the comment section, you need to make a note about what you think about the information you just recorded. Questions it makes you have, observations, connections to other information. So I need to think about what I think about this information. And what I think is, I agree that stories bring people together for entertainment. It's entertainment. But I've never thought about how it brings us together to do business. Um, so maybe storytelling could be something that helps people, me, make money, even if I don't become a screenwriter or author. Okay, so that's my comment. These are my own thoughts, my own opinions about what we saw. Then I'm going to give it a title. This is about what stories do for people. And that's how you make a note. Your goal now is to take some notes from this same article and show me that you know how to use these note cards. If you have questions, email your teacher.